Okay, so this is the story of Ramon Mercader. He was a Spanish-born Frenchman, and he assassinated Leon Trotsky. And, he was pretty cool, depending on your perspective, or not so cool. So, yeah. So this is him. As you can see, he's styling. Let's draw a little mustache on him. Can we do that? Yeah, mustache. Whoa! Yeah, so that's what's going on there. Yep. So here's just some background about his life. I'm gonna get into the actual assassination in a minute, but yeah, so he was born February 7th, 1913 in Barcelona, Spain. He moved to France when he was 11 with his mother, Caridad, and he lived there for a long time, and he was a staunch communist. He was a big supporter of the Soviets, so he wasn't so much a Marxist, which is kind of important because Trotsky, he was kind of like an old school communist, you know. He's like, whoa, Karl Marx, and Mercader was kind of like, whoa, Stalin. So that, didn't really match up too well. So yeah, he assassinated Leon Trotsky on August 20th, 1940. And he served 20 years in prison for it. So I think that's kind of cool, because, he wasn't, like, killed for it, and I don't know. Maybe that's not cool. I don't know. Afterwards, however, he was awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. And also, while he was in prison, he received an Order of Lenin from Stalin. He received it in absentia, which just means, like, while he wasn't there. Yeah, so the Soviets were a big fan of Mercader. Yeah. That was a little on the dry side, so, we're going to have a story, and it's probably not going to be very interesting, just as a warning, but I'm going to tell you the story of the actual assassination. Basically, it was a conspiracy. What had happened when the Mercaders moved to France is that they became very involved in the Communist Party and in the Soviet cause. They were already Soviets and they were already communists, but they weren't working really officially for the cause. And so what happened when they went to France is that Caridad befriended this man named Eddington. Let's just draw him here. Eddington, that's him. Eddington. So she befriended him, and he worked for the NKVD, which was a predecessor to the KGB, which we're all probably familiar with. That was the Russian secret police. And so she became an agent in the NKVD. So let's draw her. This is Caridad over here. Let's give her a little dress. Okay, Caridad. So they're both NKVD buddies, and that's nice. And they actually have an affair. So maybe not so nice, but and Mercader, Ramon, also becomes involved in the NKVD, and they undergo training. He and his mother. And Ramon actually is trained in assassinations. That's part of his specialty training is assassinations. So the place that the conspiracy starts, Eddington comes up with this plot to assassinate Trotsky, and the way that he wants to do this is to get Ramon a lover who likes Trotsky, to get him a Trotskyite girlfriend. So they pick Sylvia Agaloff. So this is this woman that basically Ramon is supposed to seduce and to be with for a long time, just, using her. I'm sure that felt real great. So she was an American from Brooklyn, and he used a fake name. Obviously he's not going to be like, I'm Ramon Mercader, I'm going to kill Trotsky. So he went under the name Jacques Mornard, and I'll just write that for you. Just give me a second. Let me erase these these other things if I can. Hold up. This is what? Okay, technology. It's not. Okay. So his name was Jacques Mornard, and he was supposed to be like the son of a Belgian diplomat or something. So they hung out, and he convinced her after a while to move to New York with him, which is where she was from, if you guys remember, Brooklyn. So she did. And then he convinced her to move to Mexico City with him. So she did. And Mexico City was very close to where Trotsky was living at the time. He was in exile, obviously, from the Soviet Union. And so he was living in Coyoacan, Mexico. And so they moved to Mexico City, which is very close to Coyoacan. And Sylvia hung out with Trotsky a lot. She went on, like, picnics with the Trotskys and stuff like that. And so they were getting all buddy-buddy. Caridad and Eating-In, meanwhile, were in the area, but they weren't directly involved in it. He was seeing them behind the scenes, but Sylvia didn't know about that. So one day, August 20th at 5 p.m., Trotsky is in his study, and Mercader walks into his house with an ice axe hidden under his raincoat. And if you don't know what an ice axe looks like, I'll draw one for you, and then I'll show you some in a minute. It's kind of like that. That's a bad representation, but I'll show you some more. So Mercader here, it's Mercader, comes in with an ice axe. Trotsky is at his desk. That's a desk. And then Ramon thrusts the ice axe into Trotsky's head. Trotsky screams, he falls to the ground, and the guards come in. The guards start beating Mercader, this one over here, that one, yeah. Mm-hmm. But then Trotsky, with an axe in his head, like that man just gave him, he screams, "No, don't hurt him, this man has a story to tell," which I think is pretty interesting, that he shows mercy to the guy who just killed him, So Trotsky is rushed to the hospital. He has obviously severe head trauma. He manages to retain consciousness for several hours, which is pretty impressive. And then he does die 24 hours later. Mercader confesses to everything in the hospital. Well, he confesses to killing him. However, he does retain the pseudonym of Jacques Mornard. He also attests that it was of his own volition, that nobody else was involved, that he was basically it. So he is jailed for 20 years. While in jail, he receives the Order of Lenin from Stalin, and afterward, he receives the title Hero of the Soviet Union. We're going to get into some interesting stuff soon about his jail time experience, because it was kind of neat. But yeah, that was how Trotsky died. Pretty cool. Okay, if you didn't know what an ice axe looks like, it's like this. They're pretty similar to pickaxes, so yeah, just take a good look. If any of you are mountain climbers, that's, yeah, ice axe. Ice axe. Okay, there you go. So now that we've had some background on Mercader, we've heard about the assassination, we've seen what ice axes are, we're going to talk a little bit about his personality. He was incredibly intelligent, and this became evident when he was in prison, because there was a psychologist in prison who wanted to run some tests on him. And they did one test, for example. They would give him an intricate Japanese puzzle box and give him just a few minutes to look at it. And then they would wait until the next day and turn off all the lights so that the room was completely dark, and give him the box again, and he could solve it within a number of minutes. He could also pass his fingers over a variety of objects and tell the difference in their heights within 0.03 of a millimeter. He could walk blindfolded 6 yards along a straight line without deviating from it at all. And they would blindfold him, and they would give him like 1 centimeter metal engravings, like little, I don't know, animals or whatever. And he could, just by feeling it, he would be able to draw whatever was on the engraving. He could remember seemingly unending sequences of numbers. He also had a very high threshold for pain. I mean, he was basically a superhero. It's really fascinating because he was just amazing. And I think part of that was probably due to his NKVD training, but he was, I mean, he was really incredible. Not that I like am all for him, you know, I'm not supporting killing people here, but yeah, he was really interesting. The Soviets were down with Ramon. They were like, good job, Ramon, you cool. So yeah. Thank you for watching the first and only episode of Trotsky's assassination. Yeah.